Hello there. So for today, we're going to discuss how to factor perfect square trinomials. First thing we need to do in factoring perfect square trinomial is for us to be able to recognize if a certain trinomial is a perfect square trinomial. So there are things we need to consider in determining if a trinomial is a perfect square trinomial. So for example, I have here 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. The question is, how we're going to know if this expression or this trinomial is a perfect square trinomial? So there are some steps that will help us to recognize if an expression is a perfect square trinomial. So number one, two of the terms must be perfect squares. Two of the terms must be perfect squares, and that is x squared and y squared. Number two, so there must be no minus sign before x squared or y squared. And then number three, so if we're going to multiply x and y and double the result, double or twice the result, so that is the third term. So you get the third term. So it may be positive or the additive inverse, the negative. Okay, so now let's go back to the example. So we have 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. Again, let us check whether this expression is a perfect square trinomial. So for number one, two of the terms must be perfect squares, the x squared and the y squared part. So this will be the x squared part, and this will be the last y squared part. Okay, so is 4x squared a perfect square? Okay, so let's check. So this can be represented as 4x squared can be represented as 2x squared. How about for 25? So that is 5 squared. So the terms x squared and y squared are in the perfect squares. Okay, now number two, there must be no minus sign before x squared or y squared. So as you can see, there's no minus sign, so that's okay, it's good. Then number three, multiply x and y and double the result, that is the third term. So this is your x part, okay, this is your y part. So if we're going to multiply this and double the result, that must be the third term. So that would be twice the product of x and y, that would be 2x times 5. So you have 2 times 2, that is 4 times 5. Okay, so we get 20x. So that is the third term. So therefore, we can say now that this trinomial is a perfect square trinomial. Okay. So how about this? Can you determine if this is a perfect square trinomial? So how about x squared plus 16x plus 64? So by merely looking at the expression, we could tell that this is x squared in terms of x raised to 2. This is 8 squared. So first and last term can be represented as perfect squares. Then if I'm going to multiply x by 8, that would be 8x, double it, so that is 16x. And there are no minus sign before x squared or y squared. So this is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, another example. How about if we have 9x squared minus 30xy plus 25y squared? So again, let's express the first and last term in terms of their perfect square. So this would become 3x quantity squared. This will become 5y squared. So if we're going to multiply 3x by 5y, that would be 15xy. Double it, so you'll arrive with a negative 30xy. Okay, so the negative here means the additive inverse. So it's okay still. This is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so let's have example number 1. This is example number 2, and this is your example number 3. Okay, so for the last example, how about this? I have here x squared plus 5x plus 6. Question is this a perfect square trinomial? Okay, so you can see x could be represented as a perfect square. That would be x quantity squared. But how about 6? Okay, so 6 again is not a perfect square number. So therefore, this is not a perfect square trinomial. Okay. So now you know how to recognize a certain expression if that expression is a perfect square trinomial. Now, we proceed with the factoring of perfect square trinomial. So how are we going to factor perfect square trinomials? So we have certain formulas that we must follow in factoring perfect square trinomial. So that is given by, if you have x squared plus twice the product of x and y plus y squared, this is simply equal to the quantity x plus y squared. Or if you have x squared minus 2xy plus y squared, okay, you simply change the sign. That would be x minus y squared. So let's have some examples. Okay, so if I have here x squared plus 10x plus 25, so how are we going to factor this? Again, let us check whether this expression is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so x squared, well, can be represented as x squared, okay, or a perfect square. How about for 25? This can be represented as 5 squared. Now, I'm going to check if twice the product of 5x gives us 10x. If yes, therefore this is a perfect square trinomial, and we can follow the formula. Okay, so 5 times x is 5x, double it, so that would be 10x. So this is a perfect square trinomial, therefore I must use this one. So the factor of x squared plus 10x plus 25 is simply x plus 5 quantity squared. Okay, so next example, we have example number 2. How about I have 16x squared plus 72x plus 81. Okay, so again, I need to check first whether if the expression is a perfect square trinomial. So let me just express this first and last term in terms of their perfect square. So this is 4x quantity squared. This will be 9 quantity squared. And then again, I'll multiply the first and last term and double it. If gives me 72x, and then we're good. So 9 times 4 is 36x. Okay, double it, that would be 72x. Therefore, this is a PST. Then, I'll just simply follow the formula, and that would give me 4x plus 9 squared. Okay, so last example for addition. Okay, so I have here 25m squared plus 20mn plus n4n squared. Okay, again, check if this is a PST. Okay, based from observation, we could say that this is a PST. Okay, so this would become 2n squared. 5m times 2n is simply 10mn. Double it, that gives me 20mn. Therefore, just simply write the factor. That is 5m plus 2n quantity squared. Okay? So, how about if we have, okay, how about if we have x squared, how about if we have x squared minus 22x plus 121? So this time we have a minus sign in the middle term. So that's not a problem. We can use this one. This can use this formula. Okay, so this could be represented as x quantity squared. This is 11 quantity squared. 11 times x, that is 11x. Double it, that would gives me 22x. Therefore, factor is x minus 11 quantity squared. Okay. Okay, now let's proceed with another example. So how we're going to factor this out? I have here 4x cubed minus 24x squared plus 36x. Okay, as you can see, the given expression is not a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so as you first see the expression, you could say that this is not a perfect square trinomial, but we can still factor this out using the concept of the perfect square trinomial by simply factoring the expression. So the common monomial here is 4x, then factor out, that gives you x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, and then you're going to have here, as you can see, you have a perfect square trinomial here. Therefore, you have 4x quantity. Again, that is x minus 3 squared. So this will be your answer. Okay, how about this example? How about this? 27a squared plus 72ab plus 48b squared. Okay, so, well, as you can see, 27 is not a perfect square, also 48, but if we're going to look for the GCF or the greatest common factor of this expression, you could see that it gives us a perfect square trinomial. So the GCF of 27, 72, and 48 is 3. Then factor it out, that gives you a squared plus, 9a squared plus 24ab plus 16b squared. Okay, so is this a perfect square trinomial? Okay, so let's check. Okay, we can express this as a perfect square. Also this one, 4, 3, 12, 24. Okay, so we're good. So 3, that would be 3a plus 4b squared. So this would be your final answer.